Alright, good morning everybody. I'm Kurt Munz from Munz Media. Last night I watched an interesting documentary called Exit Through the Gift Shop, which is a film by Banky. I started watching the film and I expected it to be a documentary of the street art movement that was going on, that began in London and spread through California and other such areas of art. The key players in the film are Banky, Thierry Guetta, who became Mr. Brainwash, and Shepard Fairey. You remember, I'll just go over real quick. Banky is the guy that did all the, if you've ever seen like the picture of the British cops kissing each other, or any of the other kind of, like the French maid sweeping things under the rug in London, that's Banky's stuff. Shepard Fairey, I think, is a little close to home for Americans. He's the fellow who developed the Obama icon and poster that was influential in the election. Terry, on the other hand, you probably don't know, unless you live in Los Angeles. And that's, I think, where the story gets really interesting.
This guy was Thierry Guetta, a Frenchman who had been living in Los Angeles since emigrating to the United States in the early 1980s. But there was one very unusual thing about Thierry. He never went anywhere without a video camera.
I started watching the story and I kind of missed the first part where Banky is explaining what the documentary is going to be about, because I was out making popcorn or something. And I'm watching for the first couple minutes and it's all about this guy Terry. I'm like, and about his films. And so I'm expecting this really cool film about, you know, how the street art movement came about in Los Angeles. And they keep showing all his films, and they're not very good. I think one of Banky's goals in the film is to make Terry seem kind of like Forrest Gump. Not a very good filmmaker, not particularly, you know, with it all together at all. Very flighty, but somehow or another, you know, he is the founder of Gump, and he invests in that fruit company, which later became Apple. Much the same way that Terry, in trying to make this documentary of street art, became kind of a street artist himself, and rose to meteoric fame and fortune almost immediately with his debut as Mr. Brainwash. In the first week of his gallery opening as Mr. Brainwash, he sold very nearly $1 million worth of art. He's done the cover for Madonna's album, and he's had a second show now in New York called Icons, after his first show in Los Angeles. Alright, so what can we learn from Terry? I think the most important lesson is passion. Terry was not a particularly skilled artist, but he certainly had a passion for street art. He was following these guys around for 10 years, trying to film them, really just because he liked being around street art, he loved street art, but he never really found his own creative venue personally. So what Terry did, and this is another business-savvy mood, because he didn't have the skills to create art himself, he knew what art was, he knew what would be popular, he had a very good sense for what was beautiful and what people would respond to, and so he just commissioned a bunch of artists to work under him in a sort of guild. And so under his, you know, brand name, Mr. Brainwash, he was able to turn out hundreds of pieces of art, which sold for nearly $1 million in the first week at his first opening at the Life is Beautiful show in Los Angeles. Next major lesson learned from Terry's success as Mr. Brainwash is the power of the gatekeepers. If you have any doubt about the influence of gatekeepers, when Terry was going for his first show, both Shepard Fairey and Banky gave reviews of his art that were very favorable. And because he did that, it was picked up in the mainstream media, and because it was picked up in the mainstream media, people started talking about it. When people started talking about it, they started getting street credibility. I think the third lesson learned is that he was willing to take risks. When he's putting on this show in Los Angeles, he mortgaged his very successful business, he mortgaged his house, he took a lot of financial risk, and threw everything he had into this project, and it really paid dividends for him. So if you want rewards, you have to take a risk. Right. Another thing that Terry did really well was that he hitched his wagon to a rising star. Throughout his 10-year development period as a filmmaker, following these guys around, he was following around the best and most influential street artists in the business, if you could call it that. His cousin was Space Invader, which was the contact that allowed him to meet Shepard Fairey. Once he met Shepard Fairey, he was able to meet Banky, and through his interactions with all those guys is where he really learned the trade, and much to their chagrin, became very successful as a street artist himself. Another thing that I found kind of interesting was Shepard Fairey's reaction to his success, and you can find it in numerous accounts outside of the film also. Shepard Fairey is definitely not a fan of Mr. Brainwash's art, to say the least. I think the fact that Mr. Brainwash has rose so meteorically in the Los Angeles art scene kind of maybe diminishes the accomplishment that Shepard's own accomplishment. I think the main reason that Shepard doesn't like Mr. Brainwash is somewhat jealousy. Mr. Brainwash didn't have to go through the period of obscurity that everyone else had to go through. He just, because of his close ties with the top artists and their recommendation right from the bat, he kind of became a top artist from day one, which is kind of interesting there. Anyway, I think you can learn a lot from Terry. He's made a lot of money very quickly doing what he's passionate about, and he seems to have always had success follow him just by following his passion. So really a great story. I recommend you check out Exit to the Gift Shop. For Munz Media, I'm Kurt Munz.